it's a roller coaster. We're in for the ups and the downs, so you can't dwell on the lows, and you can't reward yourself too much on the highs.
Welcome to the No Excuse Pro podcast, your weekly dose of motivation and actionable advice. If you're a realtor, financial planner, business owner, or anyone who's tired of making excuses and ready to take your success to the next level, you've come to the right place. Join your host, Kevin Brierton, each week as he chats with industry leaders who are going beyond the excuses to achieve their goals. So no excuses accepted. Let's get started.
Geremie, thank you so much for jumping on. I'm
Thank you
super
for having
excited to
me.
dig in a little bit. You mentioned that some of these questions were a little deep, and man, I think that's kind of the point of this. I want to go a little deeper with you and learn about a little bit more about what you're doing. You have been somebody that has really taken no excuses to a new level in areas of your life, not only professionally but personally. But I want to tell you, go ahead and tell me a little bit about your journey and what led you to your position you're in now.
Well, I'll be honest, I never thought that I would own my own insurance agency. I was in the corporate world for 16 years and kind of had this epiphany, I guess you can say, that I wanted to just take more control over what was mine, and have something for myself. And so I no time better than the present. So I just left my corporate world and decided to open up the Fiorini agency with Farmers Insurance. Um, I knew that I had some years in my work where I could build something that would um, be relevant.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit, what's important about being relevant to you?
That's a great question. In fact, as on my ribbon cutting, I always like to tell the story of Clarence Jacobs. Clarence Jacobs was my parents. I come from a tiny town in Kansas,
Okay.
and Clarence Jacobs was my parents' farmer's insurance agent. So for the better part of my life, I've been a farmer's customer since I was 16. And I was always impressed with how Clarence Jacobs ran his agency for a small town. And being in the fifth largest city in the country, I feel that customer client relationship has kind of drifted. And it just feels good to reconnect that way and maybe give the customers or my clients a little bit more personal touch, a small town feel, a little um, extra blanket, when they're thinking about their coverage. Nobody thinks about insurance until they need it. And it's just reassure. It feels good to kind of, be a part of something like that.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I know you're helping a lot of people and doing a great job and with your insurance. And so
Thank you.
what
And
do you
you.
think one thing that makes the difference in your success? What is the one thing? Is there anything that you can pinpoint to your
Well,
success?
I don't think there's one point in particular, but I do think that some of the bulk of this is just going to be consistency. As you know, as a business owner yourself, it's a roller coaster. We're in for the ups and the downs, so you can't dwell on the lows, and you can't reward yourself too much on the highs. So you've got to just keep waking up, putting one foot forward, and if you've got a plan, you've got to trust that plan. You've got to stick to that plan, even if you don't see the fruits of that labor, for a couple months. You got to just sticking with your routine and being consistent, disciplined and consistent. It's probably something you'll hear a lot from me today.
So I know you have done some things like an Ironman and you've
I have.
climbed some mountains in the
I'll let you
past.
bring I'll let you bring those up. Yeah, the picture in the background kind of segue. So
Yeah. So but like how did those journeys going through doing the Ironman training and completing an Ironman? I believe you did an Ironman and a half Ironman, maybe 2 hour Ironman, and you've climbed some pretty significant mountains. How do you think that plays into success? And is there some sort of formula or something you learned through those,
I don't
trials?
I don't know if it played into the success, but it definitely was um, a good mental practice. when I did those accomplishments, I was in the corporate world, so I did have a little bit more free time. But unbeknownst to me, I was planning for my business before I was even planning for my business, if that makes sense. Because it takes discipline and consistency to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning to go for a 120-mile bike ride.
Yeah, I would say
Um,
so.
so and before you even know it, I was already laying the bricks and the foundation of how to discipline myself to um, work through the struggles, and of running a business. I've always told this: if anybody's done mountain climbing, there is no darker spot you can go to in your mind when it's 0 degrees or below, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're summiting a peak. You get some dark times, and it definitely does train you to just keep focusing on the task, one foot in front of the other. Next thing you know, you're on top of that mountain.
That's awesome, man. Well, what's the one thing you're trying to solve in your field of insurance? What's the problem you're trying to solve right now?
So there's, for me personally, I think it's education. The one example that comes to my mind is I had a client last year call, and I don't think people actually know what the number one thing is I hear is I'm like, you know that you only have liability, or you don't have comp and collision. And they're like, but I have insurance. I'm like, I understand you have insurance, you just don't have a lot of it. And so the biggest thing is just education, of what their policies and what their coverages actually are. This particular example, I mean, they had pretty brand new, they were like 2019, 2018 GMCs and Yukons, and they were just liability only, but they weren't educated on, what actually insurance coverages do, what the comps do, what the collisions cover, what uninsured covers. And that's been the biggest struggle, is just understanding. All they see is that base rate. Oh, I pay X amount of dollars, you're $10 more. I'm like, well, you do realize that we have a little bit better coverage too. So that's probably been the biggest challenge for me right now, is just um, showcasing the value of what having an actual agent is in your corner.
Mm-hmm. So to go to like a scenario that comes to mind. So tell me about a time where you had to overcome an obstacle for a client, and how did that make you feel?
Well, I could every day I got to overcome something, whether it's a client doesn't have money that month, to pay their premium. And so we've got to figure out a way. The one that comes to my mind is in our insurance world, in the insurance world, all industries, they're not really likened to they're shying away from above the fire line. Homes that are up in the, up in the pines. And so we were having a policy that was non-renewing because they didn't that carrier doesn't offer that coverage anymore. And it's been pretty slim pickings. And so we were able to still get coverage, adequate coverage for them to, make sure that their head hits the pillow at night, knowing that it's safe and covered, and still not really breaking the bank on premiums. So that was a good one. That was a good feeling one.
So on your situation, like something that helps, does it help that you're, farmer's agent, but if you need to, you can branch out to other options if you absolutely have
Yeah.
to as well, right?
So that's the beauty of it's. I think that's another one that's people don't realize about farmers, and why I chose farmers, is that there's captive agents and then there's non-captive agents. Captive agents would be and I have no affiliation with them, but your State Farms, your American Families, they can only sell that product. And then you have your independent, which are non-captive, and those agents will be open to anything. They really are not bound by any one carrier. Farmers is a great hybrid of those two, to where we do lead with farmers, and we are encouraged and bonus to, to push farmers. And I will always go with them number one. But if there is not an appetite, if farmers chooses not to carry that or cover that, I do have options where I can write outside of farmers. Farmers is one of the only companies too that owns several companies too. So we've got sister companies.
Yeah.
So if their auto isn't that great in Farmers, I can try my sister company, one of three of my sister companies. So we do have options, and that has been helpful. It has definitely been helpful in this market.
Yeah. I mean, just understanding people's needs and then coming up with solutions for something that they may not even knew that existed that
Yeah.
they needed a help with. Asking the right questions and digging deeper can really uncover some stuff. So, in a situation, tell me what was the biggest challenge a customer faces either today or in the recent few months? A challenge your customers face, and how are you helping them solve that?
I mean, there's again going back to we have so many challenges as business owners for our clients. One that comes to my mind, I think, is understanding what insurance is and should be used for. I think there's this paradigm to where I pay an insurance company and then they'll fix it if it's broke, and then the industry wide has really tightened the reins a little bit on claims. So, with all due respect to, I feel, but you'll see a customer or a client that their kid's playing basketball and the basketball goes through the window and they call you to say, hey, I need to make a claim because I broke my window. It's, I don't want to talk anybody out of a claim, but we need to discuss, is this really going to be beneficial to make a claim for a $750 window? Is that's the biggest kind of challenge is letting our customers know that insurance is for catastrophic losses and that we're here to protect your investment. But if you backed out of your garage and clipped the side of the wall and it's $1,200 in damage, do we really need to make a claim on this? Those are some hard conversations to have because I get it. It makes me look like I'm trying to talk you out of it, and I'm not. I'm just trying to look at the bigger picture down the road and saving you premiums. Because if these claims start adding up, farmers or whoever is going to be like, okay, these guys are becoming uninsurable because there's too many frivolous claims.
So the whole idea of this podcast is a no excuse pro. And I think that it's easy to roll over and just do the easy thing and be like, okay, let's submit the claim for you, pushing paper.
Yeah.
But stopping and going, no, this actually might be harder for me because I have to actually educate you on something you don't want to hear. But the reality is it'd be better in, going through the situation of that. And my business, I tell people sometimes to not buy something or not refinance or, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Having those tough conversations really is what it's about. Like, I think when I built this out and over the years of really dialing in what no excuses mean, it means having those tough conversations when it's not necessarily convenient or easy for you as a professional. Would you agree to that?
Oh, of course. I think in adding to that too is I just had one of my vendors come in today. I'm part of the Gilbert Chamber of Commerce, and so I think those are great ways to grow your business internally and with like-minded individuals. And a lot of those are construction companies or renovation companies or restoration companies that I trust. And so partnering with them, that's like if a client calls me and says, hey, Jeremy, I had a water leak from my washer. And I'll be like, whoa, before we even said anything, let me have my guy come out there and take a look. And then they'll go out and do a non-obligation, assessment, talk to me. And they're like, yeah, he did $17,000 worth of damage. Okay, let's make a claim now. Or you know what, we can fix this for him for like $1,500. Having those conversations and trusted with our clients, I think, is what's going to be beneficial, to the longevity of having a customer in your agency.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, what if you can change anything about your typical day, week, or month? What would that be, and why is that important to you?
So this is a this is a change, but I can't really change it per se. Is because that's how I structured my agency. I was telling you about my Clarence Jacobs story, and I like to. I don't want to be an agency that just sells a policy, an ambulance chaser per se. So I have gotten pretty personal connections with a lot of my clients. Some of my biggest challenges is kind of limiting that to having a 45-minute conversation about Christmas cookies or something.
Yeah.
So those are definitely hard. It's like you want to change that, but you don't. So I can't, because that's kind of in the essence of who I am. But I think if there was really one, it's just really prioritizing maybe like sections of my day of, okay, this day is significantly, this time is going to be for prospecting commercial, or this time is where I'm going to be dedicated towards servicing the policies. So it's just having a little bit more structure on that type of sense, is probably one of my biggest challenges. Because it can be,
Yeah.
as you know, it's very easy to be 5 o'clock and you're like, man, I was busy all day today, but you feel like you didn't even get anything done. So
Yeah. So what are the patterns to being a no excuse pro and being successful in business, or whether it's in sports as an athlete or in sales? Is, I feel like there is time blocking and batching of items, and also being sensitive to, hey, we set out to do this in X amount of time, and being okay with, kind of wrapping things up. But I'm thinking through some patterns, but I'm curious, like, is there any patterns or formulas to being successful that come to mind for you?
well, it's always going to vary. All right. We actually have personal friends that their desk is array, but I'm a guy that likes to be neat and orderly. If I don't have my personal life, excuse me, if I don't have my personal life in kind of neat order, my business life is going to be the same. This is kind of corny, but my rule, I apologize. My rule is very first thing once my feet hit the floors, I make the bed. I know that you've heard Navy SEALs talk about that, but that's just my little pattern of doing that. That's my one success. If that's my only success that day, is I made the bed. So I try to have, no matter how I feel, no matter what I do, no matter how late I am, I always make the bed. And I find that if you start yourself doing these little things, that you'll it's the mindset, of maybe looking more positive. As you know, our kids are friends, so every time I drop the kids off, I always try to set them with one thing, try to make one person's life better today. And it's not so, I think if people hear me say that, they confuse that I'm trying to be a good parent, which I am, but it's also convincing myself that too. It's like if you talk positive, you're going to be positive. And if you're going to be positive, then it's going to show. So that's what I try to focus on the most. And there are days that I fail that. There are many days that I fail, but more often than not, I try to keep that kind of mindset.
Well, leading with positivity is important because you can control that. We can't control necessarily the day that comes at us, what's going to happen throughout the day, what's going to happen in our family life sometimes with health situations and other things. And what we can control is our positivity going into the day. And whether that is, that's a whole nother talk about morning routines. But I think that's a really good takeaway. And I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's something that I've really seen with you over the years. Known you for a long time, and first time we met, you jumped into a lake having some fun at a party. So, I know you're a fun-loving guy.
Bringing up stuff on me.
So you just enjoy life. I mean, you're one of the things about you is being positive and continue to move forward. And, so what's in line with the no excuse ethos and no excuse podcast? Can you share an experience that you had to hold yourself or maybe a team member accountable to ensure that you were successful in something you were doing?
I think that's in everyday what we do, right? I mean, there's not one client that you mark above the other. You're still giving. I know who you are personally as a man and as an agent. So every person that calls up, whether their financial status or where they live, if it's downtown Phoenix or if it's in North Scottsdale, I'm still going to give them my utmost attention. I think that's a no excuse of if you're going to, I have actually turned customers away because of the kind of coverage that they're looking for. And I think that's a great example of, listen, that's not what my agency's modeled after. I'm not here to just give you skimpy, insurance coverage. My head has to hit the pillow at night too. I think you'll be better off going to another agent. I'm not rude about it, but in order to keep our standards, then we need to we need to obey by our standards too, that we want our agency. So I don't want to be subpar to my customers, nor do I want to be a subpar agency.
Yeah, that's great, man. I appreciate you sharing. I think that's an important piece along. That's a great no excuse. You cannot be just guiding somebody into something that they shouldn't
Just to
get.
get a policy. Yeah.
Yeah, just to get a policy or just get a sale. I think that when people hear sales, the reality is we're all in sales, whether you're a kid trying to get into college or you're somebody that needs to persuade their parents to do something as a young child. Everything along the line, we are all in sales of somewhat. And sales sometimes has a bad connotation, like where we're doing something. But the reality is sales is there to serve people and help them along the route. We believe going alongside them on the same side of the table, really helping them, guide them through it. That's what you're doing, is you're guiding them through the process. And sometimes that being the guide means you guide them somewhere else, and
Yes.
you don't actually sell the deal, which is okay as well.
Yeah. There is numerous times I have a fellow agent and she's with a competitive agency, but I respect her and I respect the carrier that she works for. I'm not always going to win, but I do believe in that karma, I guess. If I'm taking care of that person and my friend can help out who's with another carrier, she gets a better rate, so be it. The major thing is that we took care of that customer. I do believe they'll remember that. And you know what? This Jeremy guy was a straight shooter. So
Well, I try to keep this in drive time, so I want to ask you a few final questions coming up right on time right now. Where would you like your business to be in the next 6 months?
So in the next 6 months, without getting into like number wise, it's definitely been, our industry's been hard, as you can probably imagine too. The industry altogether, the market's been hard. Rates are at an all-time high. I would like my agency to be a little bit more self-sufficient on leads, as opposed to like maybe by referrals, or I believe those are more genuine leads and prospects that we get than ones that we buy, of just the calling. I would really like to grow my agency more organically. And I do want to get to I mean, I have my own set numbers that I want, for my
Yeah.
own personal reason, goals. Um, and then just again, I mentioned the Gilbert Chamber of Commerce. I've really found camaraderie with them. I like growing organically, relationships wise, with groups like that. Other like-minded fellow business owners too, like yourself. Just doing more gatherings like that, bouncing off ideas. I think that right there is just if you're around successful people, you're going to become successful yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. What type of impact are you looking to leave on the field, and just overall, like what type of impact are you looking to leave, you know, in insurance or in your business field?
So I don't know so much about my field, but more as a business, as I've always kind of, my grandfather was a businessman that I've always looked up to. And he's just always said, if you're not making somebody's life better, then what are you doing? And that's kind of one of the things that I've always started uh, passing along to my children. And I want my agency to be that. That's why I've kind of branded my agency the Fiorini Agency with Farmers Insurance. I love farmers. I like farmers, but I want people to know the Fiorini Agency more than just farmers. I want to be that community member that is reliable. You know what? We need some help here with a school. I'm doing a program right now with a local school that we're helping out with their art program. I'm doing a little art contest for the first and second graders, and then and we're supplying necessary art equipment for the teachers.
Yeah.
Yes, we are trying to grow our name, but it feels good. It feels good to be part of stuff like that. That's what I want my agency to be.
That's awesome.
Insurance has been around for since eons. There's nothing that I'm going to do that's going to leave a mark, but I can leave a mark in my community.
That's awesome. Well, I I appreciate you sharing that. It seems like we always get to the good stuff right near the end. And I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think it's
Thank you
got to
for
be
having
more
me.
about than just business, because
Yeah.
if it's just about business, you kind of lose touch with what we're doing it for. And
Yeah.
we're not here
Why
just to
can't we do
go to
both?
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all in this for money. We're all in this to, support our families, but why can't we do both? Why can't we build strong communities and have a successful business at the same time? So
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you. We're going to keep this in drive time.
thank you.
Thanks so much for coming on. I
Thank you
really
for having me.
appreciate it. And I wish you much success with your insurance business. Just
As
really
do you.
quick, if people are going to reach out to you, how would they reach you?
So they can, our office number is 480-805-4015, or you can even go to my website, thefiorini.agency.com, and that's Fiorini.
Awesome, man. Well, you're a No Excuse
Long
Pro
Italian name.
for sure. Someday I'll try to be as cool as you, hike into the peaks of mountains in
You're
the
a lot
snow.
stronger than you give yourself credit for. You can do that tomorrow. I know you can.
I know, man. Maybe we'll see. But appreciate you coming on. Really
Thank you.
appreciate you. Much success to your business, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Have a great day.
All right, bye.
And there you have it, folks. Another enlightening episode of the No Excuse Pro podcast is in the books. A heartfelt thank you to today's guests for sharing their wisdom, and to you, our valued listeners, for spending your time with us. If you're ready to ditch the excuses and level up, make sure to subscribe and find all our episodes at noexcusepropodcast.com. Don't forget, the only thing standing between you and your goals is the story you tell yourself. So no excuses accepted here. Take action and make it happen.